are a political consultant.
Yes. Yeah, that's an
What
interesting
in
gig.
the world is that?
Well, I want to go back and I want to talk about how I got into the business.
Are we
And
going to
then
go
I'll
back to
talk about-
1963?
Oh, yeah,
or
yes. I was not yet quite a thought in my
your
father's
grandmother?
eye, the glint.
She rubbed you the wrong way, and
No, it's funny because, I'll tell you, in Charlotte, we're such a business, this entire Lake Norman, Charlotte, Mecklenburg area, we're all so business focused, right? We all are very good business folks. There's a lot of good business startups. But the thing that I think that we have kind of started to see fall by the wayside, and it was something I noticed when I first got back to Charlotte from Columbia, South Carolina, when I came back from law school in 2009, was that we had seen falling off in terms of talent and ability for not just local elected officials, but local folks who actually worked in government.
right.
When I got back from Columbia, South Carolina, I had done a stint for 2 years as one of the executive assistants for an executive director of one of the governmental agencies in Columbia. And one of the things we did was we were able to help reorganize their public defender system into a setup where there were 16 districts. We got more money for the public defenders. We got more public defenders. We got commensurate salaries for folks that work down there. And we did that all with a unanimous vote of the South Carolina House, the South Carolina Senate. We did it over gubernatorial veto. And we got the funding done that way, too. And then I come back to North Carolina and I see, well, I volunteered with a campaign in 2009. At the time, my family's been historically in development for years and years and years. We do industrial warehouse, multi-flex space. And we've been successful. We have 2 or 3 business parks up and down the southeast. We've sold a few, we've built a few, we've kept a few. It's always been a very successful venture. But in 2009, there really wasn't a lot going on. So I remember looking at my father and saying, "Well, what would you like me to do? You wanted me to come back and be the attorney for the
All right, Dad, I'm
company.
here.
There's nothing much for me to do." And I think he said, "Well, why don't you go volunteer some time? I'm going to stop paying you. So why don't you go volunteer your time and see if you can make something of this?" I'm like, "All right,
That was a
fine."
great way to say you're fired, son.
Oh, it was it gets better. So I left and I volunteered for John Lasseter's mayoral campaign. Do you remember in 2009 when John Lasseter was running?
Yes.
Okay. John Lasseter was one of the last few people who truly viewed this as public service. We've got a couple of those still around, mostly here in the Lake Norman region. We have
Well,
folks that really
I adore
serve.
one that you're working with
I know,
now, Jeff Tart. Yeah.
I've been lucky. I've served with a couple of these guys who focus
Yeah.
on public service.
Yeah.
But the focus was that John was, and I'm really glad he still serves at the Economic Development Partnership in North Carolina. But the thing that I noticed about John's campaign was that it was very active with grassroots. It had a lot of support from the base and it had a lot of support from the business community. Anthony Fox did as well, but Anthony Fox was really more an identity politics type of thing. It was Obama light in 2009. Well, Anthony won by 3,000 votes and just tore my heart apart because I was like, this isn't how this is supposed to work.
Right,
This isn't the area I know, and it changed Charlotte. I don't think a lot of people realize that if John Lasseter had been elected in 2009, he'd probably still be mayor, and we wouldn't have a lot of what's happening now. So I took that and said, all right, we're going to try something different. I went back into my
So
dad.
as a volunteer, you didn't work enough. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. There was more signs I could have put out, obviously, and more doors that I needed to knock, but I didn't do it.
Right.
But no, what I'll tell you is that I walked back out to my dad after losing that race in November and said, "I want you to fire me." And he's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, I want you to fire me." And he's like, "Well, because for 13 years I've been working for you. I was 26 at the time. I'd started working for my father in Summers, building a building since I was 13 years old." So,
We call that silver spoon.
yeah. I want you to fire me.
I wish I had one. I really do.
I'm like, "I want you to fire me." And he's like, "Why?" Well, I'm like, "Because you know what? We've been paying into this unemployment thing for a long, long time. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that money that's just sitting there and I'm going to start a business with it." And that's what I did. And I started a business, and I actually went and volunteered for 6 months with a guy who now is our Mecklenburg County District Attorney, Andrew Murray. I called him in November of 2009, worked with him throughout the next year, and in November of 2010, we were successful winning Mecklenburg County for a Republican for District Attorney's office for the first time, probably ever? Big win.
Right.
Company started then, continued to work for other folks, and brought a very detail-oriented, work ethic focused, entrepreneurial growth spirit to political campaigns, because this is what happens. Political campaigns are startups. When you really get right down to it, unless you're an established elected official who has a name ID and a brand, elected officials are startups because they have to do two things. They have to market and they have to fundraise. And one of the things that my company does is we help them understand how to do that. I grew up in the development world. There you can do two things. You have to raise money for capital, and you have to turn that capital into a product, and that product has to make money. Well, in the political world, you're not making money. You're providing a service, and you're providing a service for free, and you have to be supported by folks who actually believe in the brand of government that you're delivering. But when you actually walk into a voting booth and you pick an elected official, you know what you're picking? You're not picking somebody who you more than likely know. I mean, how many folks in this room can name all of the city council members here in Statesville?
No, couldn't do it.
Anybody? Can you name all the city council members for the northern towns of Mecklenburg?
Yeah, could not do it.
Yeah. You have to have a brand. You have to have the ability to be able to distinguish yourself to the voters and have voters walk into the voting booth and say, oh, yeah, I remember him. He mailed me. I saw his radio ad, or I heard his radio ad. I saw his television commercial. I saw his digital ad. I saw him on Facebook. Somebody, more than likely, this is actually how it is in local elections, somebody told me that this guy's the guy to vote for.
Right.
Well, how does all that happen?
Because I tell my friends, Jim Puckett's a pit bull.
I know. He's a
Just let the leash off and let him go. That's what I say.
But the funny part about being able to get all this done is that most of the work is actually done months in advance. You have to plan all this. You have to set out a budget for fundraising. You have to get everything set up. So it is. You build a business plan. And the best campaigns are ones that are run like a business with a board of directors who are traditionally on the finances and campaign committees and folks that are there making sure that these campaigns continue to work. The most fun I think I've ever had on a campaign was in 2012. That was when I did work for our good friend Senator Jeff Tart, which, full caveat, he calls me his chief of staff, and that's the title he likes me to use. But I'm paid completely through campaign dollars. I don't take one single iota of government money, and I still do constituent service work that comes in through the campaign side and help him coordinate all that. That's because the thing that Senator Tart and most of the folks that I work with believe in is that constituent service is not just the way that an elected official stays in office. It's why they get elected in the first place. If they're not actually...
Jeff cares.
Jeff cares. Jeff cares. He's one of those elected officials that brings a mayoral spirit to it. He's learned over the last 3 terms. He's started to become very effective, and it's become very apparent that the level of constituent service that he brings to the 41st Senate District is something that I think really distinguishes him. And the model that he's using to help provide service for the district is one that's starting to be replicated across the state.